very intriguing. And he taught us, one of the things that he taught us is that there are two main schools of thought on how to answer the problem of evil. One is called the Augustinian theodicy. A theodicy is a philosophical term that means a defense of God. To defend God against apparent evil. How do you believe in a God of good if there's evil in the world like you see? Children with cancer, hurricanes, everything, you know. I stubbed my toe. How can you believe in a God of good? You know? And so a theodicy is an explanation to justify God in the face of apparent evil. Well, there's two major schools of thought. One is Augustinian, which is the primary one that I would say is the more dominant one. And that's from St. Augustine. His answer to the problem of evil was fairly simplistic, but simple yet profound. And that is, there's evil in the world because of sin. First with angels, then with men. There you are. That's the predominant view that has held thought in Christian thinking. The other thought is what's known as the Irenaean theodicy. And it comes from St. Irenaeus. It's much older and it's far more elaborate. He had 6 major points to explain why there is evil in the world in the face of an all-good, all-powerful God. I'm not going to go into those right now because otherwise I'll just get all wrapped up into that. But my philosophy teacher was the first one to introduce me to him, and I found the Irenaean theodicy far more compelling, probably because it was a little bit more detailed. And so I had a fascination for Irenaeus from the beginning. And he would appear in several of other classes I took on philosophy. Well, when I was investigating the church, his name would come up. And so I would go to the Biola library and pull the volume of his work and read the quotes in the books that I was studying on Catholicism to see if they were misquoting him. And I was just very gripped by his thinking. He's a brilliant man, considered the church's first theologian, the 3rd most quoted church father in all of the catechism. A brilliant man, one step away, if you will, removed from the apostles. That's how close in time he was. One of the things I've been reading up on him recently, and I saw that hand, Marie, I'm coming back. I recently started reading up more about him in honor of his feast day. One of the things I discovered, and this is related to our study in the book of Revelation, he was born in Smyrna. Oh. He was born in Smyrna. And if you remember Smyrna, what was its characteristic? One of its characteristics. What didn't it have that a lot of the other churches did?
No reproof.
No reproof. They didn't reprove that church for corruption or falling away or, being asleep. And they were under persecution. It was in Smyrna that the Bishop Polycarp was martyred. Polycarp came from Smyrna. Remember that? Yeah. And Polycarp was a disciple of whom? John. And Irenaeus, as a child, witnessed the martyrdom of Polycarp. That's how close he was. And so it just fascinates me that we have so much written from him that was that close to the apostles. You hear what I'm saying? So what I did now, I want to say that these are just preliminary. I went crazy today because I had the time. And I printed out a little brochure about him. So if you ever wanted a quick read, and like I said, I'm planning on revising this and all this. And in fact, I would appreciate that anyone who takes it to give me some feedback. But inside, it has a little background of him. and quotes on what he said about the scriptures, papal authority, Mary, and salvation. And then on the back, I have the gospel of Jesus, what is the good news, and our website.
Nice.
So if these are done, open the door. If these are done, if I get these really tricked out really well, I'll make a whole bunch and I'll hand them out to you to pass out to other people.
I was going to say, one copy makes copies for everybody.
Well, this is just, I wouldn't make copies of this just yet because this is the first draft and I want to get some feedback to make it really nice and spiffy. So I'm just going to pass these out if you want to read them. If you want to keep them, just pass them around.
Chip, would you recommend biography?
A biography of if you were to read a good biography, I would probably recommend a book called Irenaeus. I want to say Life, Legacy, and Scripture. It uses those three words: life, legacy, and Scripture. And it's a small book, and it's a series of essays that talk about his background and his theology. Very succinct and very good. I would also recommend his major work, Against Heresies, is huge. It's very thick. It's very deep in philosophy and theology. You have to take that in bits and pieces. But if you want to read a better tract about salvation, I would read his, can you see the tract? I keep wanting to say, I wrote it in here. The Demonstration of the Apostolic Preaching. It's a smaller work, but in it he talks about all of the covenants and how they were all built up to Jesus. If you want an insight into Irenaeus' eschatology, read Book 5 of his Against Heresies. Book 5, he talks about the Antichrist. He talks about all kinds of stuff. Marie, I'm back to you.
I just wanted to say, I can't add anything to Irenaeus, but to the Augustinian theory.
Yes.
Say that word.
Theodicy.
Theodicy.
Theodicy, yes.
Theodicy. For those of us who attended Father Jeff's homily was based on that. And the word he used, we use suffering.
Ah! And there are two main thoughts. Irenaean. Thank you. Ian. Okay? One from St. Irenaeus and one from St. Augustine. The word itself means to defend God. It's a philosophical term, and it is only used when describing the problem of evil. What do you mean, the problem of evil? See, we believe that God is all good, all powerful, and all benevolent. Right? Well, if he's all good, why doesn't he do something about the evil in the world? Maybe he can't, so maybe he's not all powerful. If he's all powerful, then he should be able to do something about it. Why isn't he doing anything about it? Maybe he's not all good. Maybe he likes the evil in the world. Maybe he's just like playing with us.
He gives us free will.
See, now what you're describing, these initial responses, these are all Augustinian. Because that's what we've been I don't want to say trained on, but this is the primary go-to argument. Why is there sin in the world? It's not because God isn't all good or he isn't all powerful. It's that he's given humans and angels agency. as a gift, meaning that he's given them free will. As a result of free will, they sometimes misuse it. That misuse is the cause of sin. It's not God, it's a secondary source. That's Augustine. That's how he explained why there's evil. He goes, it's not because God can't or doesn't want to do anything about it. In fact, he's got a long-term plan that's got it all figured out from beginning to end. He's not forgetting anything. This is all part of it. But individual incidences of evil are not being individually taken care of because of a greater plan. And it has more to do with the sin that's in the world than it does with God's inability. That's an Augustinian theodicy. By the way, the only religions that have theodicy are monotheistic religions. What do you mean? Judaism, one belief in one God. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have theodicies in their philosophy. Buddhism and Hinduism don't deal with this issue. Why? Because evil is considered just a natural thing. It's just part and parcel with the world. Live with it, move on, and get over it. It just is. Just accept it and move on. You don't have to explain it with a good God or a bad. That's irrelevant, in fact. In fact, in Hinduism, you have good gods, you have evil gods, and they're constantly battling. That's the source of evil. So why are you questioning it? It's just a fact of life. You see? The only ones that have to deal with it are the religions that posit an all-good, all-powerful God. Because evil is considered the bedrock of atheism. The foundation of atheism is the problem of evil. Invariably, when you hear atheists talk, the reason why that there are atheists is because how can you believe in a God when you see genocide going on? How do you explain the Holocaust? What, was God asleep on vacation? How can you believe in a good God and accept the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, war? Children, go to an oncology ward, a children's oncology ward, and tell them about a good God. Go to a hospital ward and you tell those children dying of leukemia that there's a good God that loves them. Right? So I'm not believing in this all good. You can't in the face of all of that nonsense. That is the bedrock of atheism.
Oh, Chip, I was just wondering if either of those two guys dealt with what they call the Euthyphro dilemma, which is.
I know what the Euthyphro is. It refers to Plato. Are things good because God says they're good, or are they good because they're intrinsically good?
Yeah.
I would say in a very left-handed way. I would say Augustine deals with that in the sense that he assumes an all-good, all-loving God, and that the explanation of evil is that there is sin in the world. For Irenaeus, he would say, I would say he wouldn't challenge that idea either. He just comes up with a much more elaborate understanding. If you really want to know what these days, I'll tell you. I really don't want to go down that path right now. As fascinating as it is, and trust me, it is, the problem of evil was one of the more fascinating elements of the philosophy of religion, I thought.
Did you say that there were 6 points in here?
6 points. He had 6 major points to explain why that there is evil in the world in the face of an all-good God. I'll tell you this, one of the major points is that without evil, there would be no virtue. That was one of Irenaeus' responses. What do you mean? You can't be heroic if everything is good. If everything is just marvelous, you can't be patient. There's no need to be. Everything is fine. You see that? You can't develop virtue without evil. If there, and a sub-point to that is that if there were no evil in the world, we would live in what he called a hedonistic paradise, where all there is pleasure and there is no growth. That's another point of Irenaeus. I'm giving you 3 of the 6 already. Is the fact that because we have pain, it causes us to grow and develop. Without pain, without suffering, there is no growth of the human spirit. He said this was the cause of Adam and Eve's fault. He says the primary cause of Adam and Eve's fault is that they were perfect and they had no concept of pain and suffering because they were perfect, but they were not virtuous. They were good, but they weren't heroically virtuous. He said that it was because of sin that entered in the world, we now have persons that develop a character of virtue that we wouldn't have had before. That is why he could say that the redemption of man was greater than the creation of man. And that the sin that came into the world caused a greater creation to occur than if it didn't happen at all. Very interesting. See, it's a lot more intricate than it's just sin. It's just sin. And it is, but he gives a much more elaborate. I love him. I just love him. You too?
Just like we're saying, evil virtue is joy and sorrow, happiness and sadness.
That's kind of along the lines of this. You cannot really appreciate, it's like you can't appreciate what you have unless you lose it. Adam and Eve didn't know what they were giving up. They had no idea because they had nothing to base it on. All they were was in a proper state of grace. Which is, I mean, I'll take that, you know what I'm saying? But they were underdeveloped. Their souls were underdeveloped. And this is the 4th point of Irenaeus. He says, the reason why that there's evil in the world is that this world is a place to develop your soul. Without it, you can't develop it. With no pain, no gain. And so he doesn't, in Irenaeus' mind, God just didn't want, you to be, blobs. He wanted firm characters to develop.